Hello, Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we will be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Orlando Magic. And this is usually where I say, but before we do that, and then we have a little think piece where I kind of discuss the topics of the day or something interesting beyond the game that was on last night. But we're not going to do that today. We are going to devote this episode to really discussing what happened last night against the Orlando Magic, because that was honestly one of the craziest, most insane games I have ever seen in my very long time covering the Toronto Raptors, watching the game, being a fan, all of that stuff. This is one of the oddest games I've ever seen, okay? So let me give you the 10K foot view if you didn't happen to catch the game or just want a refresher. So the Toronto Raptors, over the past two games, they've played against the Orlando Magic in back-to-back games in Orlando's building. And they won the first game in pretty dramatic fashion. They almost coughed up a huge lead late in the fourth, and it required the Orlando Magic to miss a game-tying layup attempt from their best player, Franz Wagner. Right at the rim, he got all the way to the rim and just blew the layup. So yeah, that happened. And then in this game, it was even more crazy. So in that game, they have Jakob Poeltl on a minutes restriction because of his hip. So he has not been playing over really 26 minutes per game in any of the games he has had since he's returned from his hip injury. And last night was even more dramatic than that, because instead of just resting Jakob Poeltl in the fourth quarter and letting the Magic come back, because whenever Jakob Poeltl sits, the other team goes on a run. But it was even more dramatic than that, because the Toronto Raptors pulled all of their starters, minus Jacoby Walter, who was starting in the place of the injured Grady Dick. They pulled everybody. And they had on the court, in the final 1.5 minutes of the game, they had AJ Lawson, Jamal Shead, Jacoby Walter, Orlando Robinson, and Jared Rhoden, who is another 10-day guy. Those are one former 10-day guy in Orlando Robinson, who had his contract converted, two legit 10-day guys, AJ Lawson and Jared Rhoden, and then two rookies in Jamal Shead and Jacoby Walter. So this was pretty blatant tanking. The Magic, of course, because, you know, the Raptors were kicking their butts with their starters. You take out the starters, the Magic come back. They erased a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter and then took the lead with, you know, only a couple of seconds left to go in the game. It was very back and forth. AJ Lawson was hitting some huge, cool, like really impressive shots. But then the Magic came back and would hit a shot on the other side. And then, cue the dramatic music, Jacoby Walter, rookie, who has really come on lately, has the play drawn up for him by Coach Darko. He gets to isolate at the top of the arc, and he takes an awkward looking shot and bangs it. 0.5 seconds left to go in the game. Orlando gave it a shot. There were some weird stuff that happened at the end of the game with a shot clock malfunction, etc. But essentially, it was a game-winning shot for Jacoby Walter. His first of his career. He mentioned that after the game when he was being interviewed. He'd never had a game winner before. That was his first one. Wow, I had so many emotions, mixed emotions, good emotions. Jacoby Walter, one of my favorite players on the team, has really emerged and become a really impactful player on both ends for the Raptors. And he had a fantastic moment. You felt your heart swell with pride. The Raptors made a game of it in weird circumstances and were able to triumph over the Orlando Magic. I was like, oh my God. But then after the excitement wore off, the reality set in. These were games that the Toronto Raptors should have lost. They should have lost these games. This was like almost a scheduled loss. Looking at the schedule, you would look at these two back-to-back Orlando Magic games and go, it's in their building. The Raptors have been terrible on the road. The Magic are an excellent defensive team. They've got most of their guys. This is a loss. These are two losses. They won both of those games. So you're like, okay, well, the tank. What about the tank? Anyway, let's delve into this a little bit. First of all, I've been reading social media. Of course, I post quite a bit on social media. And one of the sentiments that I saw that's just completely wrong, and I need to get out in front of this, is people are like, what is Darko thinking? Fire this guy. How could he possibly make... Guys, this is not Darko's fault. Like, let's please, for the love of God, do not blame Darko for playing the lineup you saw at the end of this game. Like, use some critical thinking skills here, okay? No coach, not a single coach from the high school level to the NBA level, not one coach would think that it is a good idea to take out healthy, non-minutes restricted players in the fourth quarter, your guys who gave you the big lead in a close game, take them out of the game, and then put in 10-day guys and rookies to close the game. This isn't, there's no way this could be incompetence, okay? Let me put it that way. There was no way Darko was like, well, I'm gonna take out RJ Barrett and put in Jared Rhoden, and that'll give me a good chance to win this game. There's zero doubt in my mind, zero, that this was a front office decision where they said, we need to lose some games so that we can have better chances in the NBA draft lottery. Full stop. There's just no doubt in my mind that that is what is happening. Okay, so if you blame Darko, I don't know what to say at this point. If you hear what I'm saying, communicating this to you right now, and you don't agree with me, I don't know what to say. Okay, don't blame him, please. Now, what happened was that the Magic were just too crappy to take the victory that the Raptors handed to them. Raptors can't tell their players, Darko can't be like, okay, go out there and miss this shot and miss this free throw. Oh, don't grab this. That does not happen. You cannot do that. You can't instruct your players are just going to be like, screw you, I'm going to go out and play the best. I don't want to sacrifice my own stats to help you lose, to draft my replacement. Like, there's no incentive for them to do that. They have to do what Darko did last night, which was put in guys who aren't very good. Let them play the minutes and then, cast the die and see what happens. And guess what? The Magic couldn't do it. They couldn't beat the Raptors, even when they had blatantly tanked the game in the fourth. Now, you might say, well, why didn't they, sit the starters sooner? That's a good point. Maybe they should have sat the starters, but all the starters played under 30 minutes per game. This was almost like an exhibition game. Like, sometimes you see this in the preseason where you play the starters a couple of minutes, let the fans get their money's worth, and then you sit them in the fourth and let the young guys play. That's kind of what this was, and the Magic couldn't beat them with their almost full strength team. I'm just kind of like picturing Darko Rajakovic like walking into like a dark boardroom in Toronto, with a bunch of scowling faces staring back at him, trying to explain like how he let the Toronto Raptors win the game. He's like, I played AJ Lawson 26 minutes. I played Jared Rhoden 21 minutes. I tried. I'm sorry. I tried to lose the game. And another thing that was very funny was like listening to the broadcast. So Jack Armstrong, Matt Devlin, who were on the call, trying to like pussyfoot around the obvious. I think anyone who is a neutral observer who was literally watching the game and maybe posting on social media was like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Oh, the Raptors are trying to lose here. That is what social media was saying. But like, of course, Matt Devlin and Jack Armstrong, who are calling the game, employed by the Raptors, trying to toe the company line, and I'm not blaming them or anything, that's just the reality of the situation. They can't come out and say directly, oh, the Raptors are trying to lose this game on purpose by playing all of these guys. But there were some hints, like Jack Armstrong at one point when they had to do the jump ball at the end of the game due to the shot clock malfunction, the game was basically over. I don't know if he accidentally, but he let it slip. He said, look at the group the Raptors have on the floor right now. Like, look at expressing surprise that the lineup on the floor at the end of the game was like rookies and 10-day guys. So they knew. They knew what was happening. They couldn't say anything. In terms of what this means, let's get to that. The Raptors are tanking. I mean, this is very obvious. They tried to throw the game into the garbage last night. This is the front office saying, okay, we've won too many games. And if you've looked at the remaining strength of schedule, the Raptors this is a cakewalk. The Toronto Raptors, if you averaged it out, their opponents would have a 35.8% winning percentage, okay? That is pitiful. The next easiest strength of schedule is Boston. They have a 43.6%. That is a full 8 percentage points harder than the Toronto Raptors' remaining strength of schedule. This is a cakewalk, okay? So they came into this game, these two games with the Magic. I had these penciled in as losses, okay? The Toronto Raptors are not good on the road. The Magic, they've been struggling recently. They're missing Jalen Suggs. He is a big part of their team. I still thought, this is a really good defensive team. They have a bunch of guys who can guard Scotty Barnes really well. They have most of their big players like Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. Those guys are playing. They've got some pretty good role players. The Raptors are supposed to lose both of these games. They won both of those games. Things are going to start to go in the wrong direction, up. Things are going to start going up for the Toronto Raptors. They are going to start winning these games, especially if they do not strategically rest players. This is something that the Jazz have been doing, not so subtly, over the past couple of months. They've just been randomly, sitting their guys like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, and they've been letting the rookies and sort of 10-day guys and all of them play a lot. They are just like losing on purpose. If the Raptors don't want to fall out of the top 5 of this year's draft, they're going to have to start doing what the Jazz are doing, which is strategically resting starters. Because this team, when they have Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes on defense, Jacoby Walter is a really good defender. And they've replaced Grady Dick, who is a poor defender, in the starting lineup with him. Those 3 players give you some defensive juice. These guys are playing really good defense. And then on offense, you have Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. Those guys are floor raisers on the offensive end. This is a pretty well-balanced, pretty good-looking starting lineup here that's going to give you a chance to win most of the games that you play. This is kind of getting a little scary here. They're looking like a good team and the schedule is getting easy. Not a good combo if you want to lose games. We'll just briefly discuss what's at stake here, because there are kind of 5 tiers here. So in the first tier, you have Cooper Flagg. He is by himself. He is one of the best prospects in the draft, of the past decade or so. He is an extremely, extremely good two-way player. He plays on both ends of the court. It doesn't mean he's going to be an elite NBA player, but in terms of what you look for in a prospect, he's right up there with like the Zion Williamsons, maybe not at the same level as Wemby, but like Anthony Davis, kind of similar type of prospect. In any case, this guy looks like the real deal and an elite, no doubt about it, #1 overall pick. And then in the second tier, you have another guy who would have just easily been the #1 overall pick in another draft. Looks very similar to guys like Cade Cunningham and other, premier #1 option offensive players in Dylan Harper. He has just been great. He has very few weaknesses in his game. He looks like a new school NBA lead ball handler / point guard. So he's in his own tier as well. And then in the third tier, you still have 2 really good prospects in VJ Edgecombe and Ace Bailey. And those guys aren't, obviously, they have some flaws to their game, but they have undeniably high upside. They look like they could be excellent players, like franchise level players, if they reach their ceiling. And then after that, it's like kind of a mixed bag, but there's still some pretty good prospects. But you want to be in that top 4. You want to get one of those 4 guys. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, those guys are probably going to change your franchise and make you like a very good team for the next decade or so. But then the other 2 guys also have really high upside. And if they reach their upside, they could be those kinds of players as well. So you want to be in the top 4. You don't want to fall out of the top 4. You want to have a good chance of jumping into that top 4. And coincidentally, the way that the lottery works is that you have a chance, if you're in the lottery, to jump into the top 4. That's where it cuts off, where you can actually move up. So there is a big incentive to not win any of the remaining games for the Toronto Raptors. And they are going to have to make some tough decisions moving forward. They made a tough decision last night. They were not subtle about what they were trying to do, and everybody picked up on it. So what are they going to do? Are they going to, just rest starters strategically? The league office hates that kind of stuff, and they might get fined. So they're going to have to think about what they're going to do. And it'll be interesting to see if they want to continue with this strategy or whether they just say, screw it, we're going to go for the play-in. I hope they go with the former, but they might go with the latter. Who knows? We'll have to see. Anyway, let's talk about the player evaluations. We usually get into this after the think piece, and we've already talked about the game, but we can get into kind of what the players were able to do during this game, who were the best players. And really, we got to start with the man in the middle. The Magic literally had no answer for him. He looked like Tim Duncan every minute he was on the floor. Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl was unbelievable last night. Both games against the Magic, he was elite. He was one of the best players in the game the night before against the Magic. In this game, it was just no doubt about it. The moment he stepped on the floor, the Raptors were kicking the Magic's butt. The minute his pinky toe stopped touching the court for the Toronto Raptors, as soon as he stepped off of the court, the Magic were better than the Raptors. It was just night and day how important he was against the Orlando Magic. So let's talk about his stats. So he only played 24 minutes in this game. He played fewer minutes than he did the other night. He scored 17 points on 6 of 8 shooting. He was unbelievable rolling to the basket. Catching the ball, his hands are great. You can just get him the ball. As long as it's in his catch radius, his hands are fantastic at just clamping onto that ball and then getting a shot opportunity. His issue is that, he's not an above the rim finisher. He finishes with floaters and layups and that kind of stuff. He has good enough touch that most of the time he's going to make that, but really his ability to catch balls on the move and have his head on a swivel ready to accept the passes. There's a reason that Brandon Ingram really was excited to play with Jakob Poeltl. A, the screens he sets are amazing. B, his ability to read angles and get into a position where he can catch a pass and then get the ball up is fantastic. 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Jakob Poeltl has made a huge stride there. He used to be just horrible from the line. This year, he's actually he's close to 70%, which is right around that line where you're like, this guy is totally fine to play in the clutch. He's not gonna, go 0 for 2, which would screw your team or whatever. 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, a block, 0 turnovers. Again, we can't talk about plus minus too much unless I think it's relevant, and I have been mentioning how the team falls apart when he's not on the floor. He was plus 14 again in this game. Highest plus minus on the team. No other aberrations like last game. AJ Lawson had the highest plus minus even though he didn't score any points, but Jakob Poeltl is not only a good player, but against a team like the Orlando Magic, who don't really have a true big. They have Goga Bitadze, who's big, but he's not great. And then they have Wendell Carter Jr., who is pretty overrated, honestly. Jakob Poeltl owned both of those guys on offense, on defense. And then, I've always said this, is that when you have big physical forwards, they're kind of bullies, and they love to score in the paint. That is their goal, is that they are the second biggest kid on the playground, and they're going to bully all of the kids underneath them. The large forwards, they bully the wings and they bully the guards. Those guys can't guard them. Do you know who can guard them? Other forwards, of course, but centers. True centers. The biggest kid on the playground. Forwards don't like playing against real centers. They want to score inside. What do centers do? They stand in the paint, they block shots, but also they're just large bodies that you cannot go through. And Jakob Poeltl does what his job basically is to position his body in a way that cuts off the penetration, and you will have to go through him to get to the basket. He does not block a lot of shots, but what he does is that he's in the way. You have to either go around him with your foot speed, or you have to go through him. And unless you're a guy like Zion Williamson, who's just like a freight train, you're not going through Jakob Poeltl. He is too big. And it just crushed the Magic last night. Crushed them on both ends of the floor with his screens and with his finishing inside, his offensive rebounding, his boxing out, all of that's at the Gortat screens that really just make life easy for everybody. He was dominant. He looked, like I mentioned it during the game, this is the kind of stuff that if you are a fan of basketball, you understand what's going on the court. This is the stuff Tim Duncan used to do, where if you're watching the game, the stats may not be okay, well, whatever. You can see guys put up Tim Duncan's stats, but when you watch the game, you know that he is the most impactful player on the court. When he's playing, he's doing all of the stuff that you're like, oh, yeah, this guy is putting his mark on the game. And Jakob Poeltl did that. I'm not saying he's like Tim Duncan, but against the Magic, he's like Tim Duncan. This guy is looking insanely good against them. So anyway, got to give this guy his flowers. He's been solid all season. In this matchup particularly, this is an excellent matchup for him. Next up, we'll go to RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett was awesome last night. Let's read the stat line, because a lot of the time when you get down to the lower positions like the guards and wings and stuff, a lot of the time it is about the stats. With Poeltl, maybe it's not as much about the stats. With RJ Barrett, it is about the stats. Let's look at them because they're great. 21 points on 14 shots. Again, he also played 32 minutes. He was the last of the like real starters to be taken out of the game with like a minute and 30 seconds left to go. So he played more than the other starters, 32 minutes this game. So he had 21 points on 7 of 14 shooting. Great. 3 of 6 from 3. Amazing. 4 of 9 from the free throw line. 4 of 9 from the free throw line. Yeah, this is his Achilles heel, but we'll move past this. I've discussed this at length in other episodes. 8 rebounds, great. 9 assists, amazing. 0 steals, 1 block, 2 turnovers, 9 assists to 2 turnovers. That ratio is like excellent. You take that any day of the week. And his defense, especially against a team, like I mentioned this in the episode before, it bears repeating, he was defending Franz Wagner, and he is a good man-to-man defender. If the man that he is guarding has the ball, his foot speed's pretty good. He is a well-built player. He is not a shrimp. He has broad shoulders, and he has a good center of gravity, and he's a chunk, like he's kind of built well. You're not going to be able to bully him very easily, and he's going to be able to stay in front of guys and you know, do a good job moving his feet. His issue, and I've said this again a bazillion times, is that sometimes he falls asleep when he's not guarding the ball. So you have a guy who is a good one-on-one player who you're trying to isolate against because your offensive scheme is terrible, lots of ISOs. He was doing a good job man-to-man covering Franz Wagner, and then when he would fall asleep on the coverages, sometimes he did, he was playing help defense a little too much and ignoring his man. Franz Wagner is not a good enough shooter to punish him. And Franz Wagner did have a pretty good shooting game, but that's not what they want to do. They want to start the offense with Franz Wagner and then kick it out to a better shooter. They don't want to do it the other way around, where they have Franz Wagner playing off of the ball and then have to kick it to him for him to shoot. That's just not the process that the Magic want to employ. So this was almost like a great defensive matchup for RJ Barrett. And his passing is superb. He really is the offensive engine for this team. I mean, Scotty Barnes is obviously very important for the Toronto Raptors offense, but in terms of like playmaking and just the ability to get inside consistently on the pick and roll, and then be able to make the correct play once you do that. Sometimes that's scoring and sometimes that is passing, but being able to execute that play, the pick and roll, one of the most ubiquitous plays in the NBA, being able to make the correct decision in that play every time down the floor, you're just gonna just naturally generate baskets for your team. You're gonna score, or the defense is gonna overcommit, and then you are gonna be able to get an assist. And he was just doing that all night long against one of the best defenses in the league. Guys, the Magic, I don't know if they're number 2 after this game. Maybe they've dropped a little bit because the Raptors have been effective against them. But they have been one of the best defensive teams in the league. And of course, they're missing Jalen Suggs, who's like an excellent defender, but he's been missing for a while now. The Magic are still a very good defensive team, and they've got guys who theoretically should be able to guard RJ Barrett, and they've got the help defenders that should be able to, you know, bother a shot, but it didn't matter. And especially on the fast break, he's also a very good ball handler on the fast break. He does a very good job of setting up his teammates. And then when the cherry on top here, the cherry on top is the off-ball shooting. It's so important that he is a good off-ball player, because if you're projecting forward, you're looking at a guy like Brandon Ingram. He's going to have to play with Brandon Ingram, and I mentioned this in the last episode with the usage and stuff. He has to be a better off-ball player than he has been in the past, and he has shown the ability to be able to hit those kick-out threes, especially at the top of the arc, especially on the wing. He has been a good wing three-point shooter, and that continued last night. So, you know, top marks for this guy. Jacoby Walter. Jacoby Walter started this game. This was not his first start, but this was like his first kind of breakout performance in the starting lineup. And he got a lot of opportunities in this game. And of course, he hit the game-winning three-point shot, which is like an electric moment for him as a player, as a rookie. It can't be overstated how important that is for confidence, the ability where your team gives you the ball at the end of the game, and you go out there and you execute and you make the play, and you get that groundswell of confidence and, you know, belief from your teammates. This is maybe helps him level up as a prospect. This is a moment that we've all been hoping to see, and I've been hoping to see from guys like Grady Dick and other young players in the past. When you're able to get that kind of moment, I think that greases the skids. That makes things everything easier. It makes it so that, you have that confidence to work with. You have that moment where you can say, yes, I can get it done. You're not going to shy away from the moment. And sports, life, a lot of stuff is about confidence and belief in yourself. And hopefully, this helps him take a step there. On the defensive end, the guy is a stud. He is willing to do whatever it takes to win a game. He is able to just hound people, force turnovers, get steals. I'm in love with this guy's defense. Okay, I think it's great. And then on offense, 17 points on 10 shots. He was 2 of 4 from 3. He was 7 of 8 from the free throw line. He puts a lot of pressure on the opposing. He puts a lot of pressure on the refs to make calls because he does go towards the rim. He does not shy away. And one thing that I got to talk about is that the Magic were very dirty last night, especially Wendell Carter Jr. This guy was frustrated. He was angry, ornery. Jakob Poeltl was kicking his butt. And I think that he was just pissed, and he fouled a bunch of guys a bunch of times. There was a dirty foul on Jacoby Walter where Yak kind of had to push Wendell Carter Jr. out of the way to get to his rookie. I just didn't like that. And Jacoby is a rookie. He's a young rookie, and he's trying to make his way in a men's league. And I just didn't like the energy that the Magic had last night. I think they were playing too rough. Of course, they want to protect their home court, but they were classless. This was a lot of bad stuff going on there. And Jacoby Walter is a tough kid. He is tough as nails. That did not stop him. He was trying to make plays even after that. He wasn't cowed by the physicality of the Magic. So kudos to him. Big time effort from Jacoby Walter. I am so proud of what he was able to do. Next up, let's go to the bench, and we got to start with the Canuck, the 10-day guy who looked like Ray Allen in this game. AJ Lawson, 13 points on 5 of 6 shooting. He was 3 of 4 from 3. He had huge, massive clutch buckets. If you were hoping that the Raptors were winning this game, I was kind of on the fence because in the moment I'm cheering for Raptors wins, okay? I'm very of two minds about it. I'm really in that cognitive dissonance zone. So when I watched AJ Lawson just bang these awesome threes, part of me was like, oh my God, this is sick. The other part was like, no! I hope you understand where I'm coming from here. He had another awesome play where he blocked Franz Wagner from behind, stole the ball basically, he blocked it and then got possession of it, ran down the court. The Magic looked like they were back in time, and then he managed to get it up off the glass, and it was a goaltending call. What a performance from this guy. I don't know if it means anything. This could be a one-off. It's very important not to get too high or too low, especially on guys who may not figure to be here long-term. But I liked what I saw from him. It's hard not to like it when a player shoots so well and, wins you the game. So good for him. Jamal Shed also had a good night, even though he didn't shoot the ball particularly well. He had an amazing night against the Magic the last time. He had 8 points on 3 of 10 shooting, 1 of 4 from 3, 1 of 1 from the free throw line, 1 rebound, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, good defense. Solid night from him, even though he didn't shoot the ball particularly well. I like how he runs the team, as I've mentioned before. He is looking pretty good, but not one of his standout games, just like the last time they played the Magic, but this was still pretty good. Next up, we got to talk about Jonathan Mogbo. Jonathan Mogbo had to leave the game. He only played 7 minutes because Paolo Banchero swung his arm and hit Jonathan Mogbo in the face. There was blood everywhere on the court. He suffered a facial laceration, I think they called it. I think there was a contusion there as well, which is a bone bruise. The Magic were kind of playing dirty all night long, or rough. Maybe not dirty, but just playing rough. And Jonathan Mogbo was a victim there, and he had to come off of the court, and he only played 7 minutes, so prayers up for this guy. Hope he makes a full recovery. Next up, we'll talk about Orlando Robinson. Orlando Robinson did not have a very good offensive night. He only had 2 points on 1 of 3 shooting, but he did have a good kind of everything else night. Of course, he's not Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl was plus 14, so he was on the court every minute that Jakob Poeltl wasn't. So look at these stats, and this is perfect. This is amazing when this happens. So Jakob Poeltl played 24 minutes, which is exactly half of 48, okay? Orlando Robinson, as soon as Jakob Poeltl came off of the floor, Orlando Robinson played 24 minutes. So it was literally half and half. Half Jakob Poeltl, half Orlando Robinson. Jakob Poeltl was plus 14 in this game. Orlando Robinson was -13. Okay, so there's a 1-point difference there. And of course, the Raptors, what does that mean? Let's do some math. The Raptors won by 1 this game. So that little, the Jakob Poeltl's contributions kind of offset just enough Orlando Robinson's. But here's the thing, that's another reason why plus minus isn't exactly a perfect metric. Like you could say Jakob Poeltl is God and Orlando Robinson is crap. But you are kind of a victim to who you're playing with. And of course, Orlando Robinson's sharing minutes with the bench. He's not playing with the starters. He's playing mostly with the bench. So there's going to be some tech on there. And Orlando Robinson's just kind of like a lesser version of Poeltl, like a diminished Poeltl. And that doesn't mean he's bad. It just means that he's just kind of like in every category, he's similar, but just a step down. So like his athleticism and foot speed is pretty good for a big, but it's a step down from Poeltl. His rebounding is good, but a step down from Poeltl. His finishing is a big step down from Poeltl. That's pretty much where he is, but he's doing almost all the same things Poeltl does. He is a facilitator in the high post. You can run sets through him. He's going to give you a lot of the same stuff, especially on defense, that Jakob Poeltl does. And I understand why the Raptors have him on the team is because he's kind of just like, you get a lot of continuity between those two players. You can play the same way. You can run the same sets. You can do the same, expect the same kind of stuff from both players. So I get it. And I think he's okay. I think he's a decent backup, and maybe they could bring him back next season. But, the finishing is still a big problem. Anyway, yeah, that was the game. And I've already discussed at length what the game was and sort of the consequences of them winning this game and who did this and that. So we're going to keep it pretty brief for the end here for the final thoughts. And we'll just really go and talk about who the Raptors are playing next. People who want to see the Raptors lose games, I have really bad news for you because the Toronto Raptors are facing the Jazz, who are one of, if not the worst team in the entire league. They have a pitiful record. They, as I mentioned before, strategically rest their players and tank, and they're playing the Raptors in Toronto. This is like, the Raptors could probably do something similar to what they did against the Magic at the end of this game and still have a pretty good chance to win. So if you're a fan of the tank, it's not looking too good, unless they want to go band for band with the Jazz and really pull out all the stops to try and out-tank them. I mean, with strategic resting and all that unethical stuff. In any case, what did you think of the game last night? If you are sort of just catching these, maybe not watching every single game, I encourage you, please watch the final, I would say, 5 minutes of this game, because it is bizarre. It's crazy. The implications of it are massive. Like, this is not even subtle. It was blatant, but still made for an entertaining game. I mean, exclamation point that Jacoby Walter had at the end of this game is worth it, worth watching. So even though I'm a bit conflicted, I'm still kind of happy about it. So in any case, let me know here in the comment section and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Raptors fans. We are truly the best. And I love reading your comments, answering your questions, all that good stuff. And please, if you haven't already, please like this video and then go and click that subscribe button, because it helps the channel grow. It helps the channel be put in front of more Raptors fans just like you. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.